There was an official in the palace of King Xerxes named Haman, and the king had given him a very high position in the court. All of the other officials had to bow to Haman whenever he passed, because the king had told them they must. Mordecai, however, did not do as the others did. He would not bow down before Haman because he did not feel bound to obey any law but God's. "Why do you not obey the king's command?" the other officials asked Mordecai. They warned Mordecai that it was dangerous to ignore a royal order, but Mordecai would not listen to them. Haman became very angry and determined to punish Mordecai. He had learned that Mordecai was a Jew, and in his anger he decided to punish all the Jews in Persia along with Mordecai. He plotted carefully and devised a scheme that would make it appear that the king himself wanted the Jews destroyed. Haman went to Xerxes and spoke against the Jews. "Your Majesty, there are people living in the kingdom who have laws of their own that are different from the laws of your people. They do not obey the laws, but only their own." Haman told the king, "It is very dangerous for you to let them live. I would be glad to pay 10,000 talents into the king's treasury for the sake of getting rid of these dangerous people. I beg your Majesty to issue a decree that they should all be destroyed." Xerxes believed the words of Haman, his trusted servant, and he gave Haman the ring from his finger. This was the same thing as signing his name to any decree that Haman might write, because in those days a law was marked by sealing it with a king's special ring. "I give you my ring," said Xerxes. "Write whatever you wish in the decree and seal it with this ring. As for the 10,000 talents you offered, you need not pay anything at all, and you may do whatever you choose to these people." Haman was wickedly pleased with the success of his plan. He called the scribes or writers together. "Write a decree," he commanded. "In it, say that on the 13th day of the last month of the year, every Jew in Persia is to be killed, men, women, and children. Anyone who sees a Jew should kill him, and whoever does so may keep for himself the Jew's house, cattle, and money." The scribes wrote the decree as Haman had said, and Haman sealed it with the king's ring, which made it officially the law of the land. Copies were sent by messenger to the governors and rulers of every province. When the messengers had left, Haman and the king sat down and drank wine together. When Mordecai learned of what Haman had done, he was filled with sorrow for the troubles of his people. He put on a sackcloth, which was a sign of grief and mourning. He walked through the streets uttering sad and bitter cries. He went before the king's gate, but he could not go through because no one dressed in sackcloths were allowed inside the gate. In every province throughout the land, the Jews were unhappy. Many of them did as Mordecai had done. They dressed themselves in sackcloth to demonstrate their sorrow. Queen Esther had not heard about the decree, but then one of her maids told her that Mordecai had been in the street wearing sackcloth and mourning. Esther sent new clothing to her cousin, but he refused to remove the sackcloth. Still, Esther did not know why Mordecai was so sad. She then sent an officer of the king to go and ask Mordecai what was the matter. "Here," said Mordecai to the soldier, "take a copy of this decree to the queen, and she will understand why I am sad. Ask her to also to plead with the king to save the Jews in Persia." The officer reported to Esther what her cousin had said, and she sent another message to him. "It is well known that if anyone goes to the king without having been called by him, that person will be put to death, unless the king chooses to hold out his golden scepter as a sign that the intrusion is forgiven," said Esther's message. "I have not been called by the king's presence for the past 30 days. How do I dare go and speak to him?" Mordecai sent back a message. "Do not think that the enemies of our people will let you live just because you are the queen," said Mordecai's message. "If you will not save the Jewish people now, someone else will save them, but you and all your relatives will be destroyed. And who knows, perhaps the Lord made you queen just so that you would be in a position to save the Jews at this very moment." Esther then instructed Mordecai to get all the Jews in the city to fast and pray for 3 days. She said, "I will do the same, and then I will go in to see the king without having been summoned by him. If he chooses to have me put to death for this, then I am willing to die." Esther carefully planned her attempt to save her people. She dressed herself in her royal robes, and she sent to the entrance of the inner part of the palace where the king could see her as he sat on his throne. The Lord made the king feel kindly toward her, and the king held out his golden scepter, which meant that she was forgiven for entering without being summoned. Esther moved closer to the king and touched the top of the scepter, which was a sign of respect for the king. "What is it you wish, Esther?" the king asked. "Whatever it is, your request will be granted." "If the king pleases," said Esther humbly, "I would like both the king and his minister Haman to come and enjoy a banquet that I have prepared today." "Go to Haman and tell him to make ready," said the king to a servant standing nearby. "We will go to the banquet that the queen has prepared for us." At the banquet, the king asked what favor Esther wanted to ask of him, because he knew that she must have wanted something very badly to dare visit his inner court without an invitation. Again, the king said that no matter what she requested, her wish would be granted. "If the king and Haman would be gracious enough to attend another banquet tomorrow, which I will prepare between now and then, I will tell the king what it is I would like to ask at that time," was Esther's reply. Haman was very proud because he had attended a banquet at the queen's house and had been invited to come again the next day. He passed Mordecai at the king's gate, and once again Mordecai failed to bow to him. This made Haman extremely angry, but he said nothing. When he reached his own house, he called together his friends and sent for his wife. He wanted to boast of the honor that had been done him and of his important position in the court. "The king has set me above all other servants," he bragged, "and what is more, Queen Esther invited me to go with the king to a banquet she had prepared. Tomorrow I go to another banquet at her house, and I am the only man beside the king who is invited. All these honors are very wonderful, but I cannot be truly happy about them while I see the Jew Mordecai sitting at the king's gate." "Here is a suggestion for you," said his friends. "Let a high gallows be built higher than any gallows has ever been before, and ask the king in the morning for permission to hang Mordecai on the gallows. After Mordecai is dead, you can go to the queen's banquet and enjoy yourself without care." Haman was pleased with that plan and ordered the gallows be built immediately. That night, King Xerxes could not sleep, and to divert himself, he ordered that his servants bring him the book in which important events of the kingdom were recorded. The book was brought and read to him. It happened that his servants read him the story of how Mordecai had saved the king's life by telling about the plot of the 2 soldiers. Xerxes asked what reward had been given to Mordecai for this. "No reward was given him, your majesty," his servants answered. As they were speaking, Haman came into the court. He had come to ask the king's permission to have Mordecai hanged in the morning, but before he had a chance to say anything, the king spoke. "Tell me, Haman," said Xerxes, "what do you suggest I should do for a man whom I want very much to honor?" Haman immediately jumped to the conclusion that the king referred to himself, and he proceeded to tell the king of the kind of honor that would appeal most to him. "Let the man whom the king wishes to honor be dressed in the king's royal robes. Let him ride the king's horses, and let the king's crown be set on his head of the man the king wishes to honor. Then let one of the noble princes lead the horse on which the man is riding through the streets of the city, and call out that this is the king's favor to a man he wishes to honor." "Very good," said the king. "Now take the robes and my horse and my crown and go to Mordecai the Jew. Let it be exactly as you said. You may lead the horse through the town and call out that this is the king's favor to a man he wishes to honor." Haman did not disobey the king, but he was humiliated and angry that he was forced to show such an honor and respect to a man he hated. After Mordecai had ridden through the town on the king's horse, dressed in the royal robes, and wearing the king's crown, he returned humbly to his seat outside the gate. Haman hurried home as quickly as possible, hiding his face in shame. He told his wife and friends of the embarrassment he had suffered, and as he was speaking, a messenger came to take him to the banquet that Esther had prepared. This time, when the king asked her what request she had to make of him, Esther answered him fully. "If the king is pleased with me and wishes to grant my request, then let him save the lives of all the Jews and my life as well. Evil things have been said about the Jews, things that are untrue, and an order has been issued that I and all my people are to be killed." King Xerxes was astonished, for he knew nothing about the decree that Haman had issued and sealed with his royal seal. "Who has dared to do such a thing?" he demanded. "This man, Haman," said Esther. "He is our enemy." Haman was terrified, and the king was so angry that he left the room. Haman fell on his knees before Esther and begged for his life. When the king came back into the room, that was the position in which he found Haman. A soldier of the king spoke at that point. "Outside of Haman's house is a gallows 75 feet high that Haman built to hang Mordecai," said the soldier. The king ordered that Haman himself be hanged on the gallows he had built for Mordecai's execution. And when Haman had been hanged, the king was able to forget his anger. Although Haman was dead, the decree that had been sent to all parts of the land was still in force, because once a decree became a law of the Medes and Persians, it could not be changed. Even the king himself could not change it. But he told Esther and Mordecai that he might issue another decree to save the Jews, and seal it with his royal seal, so that this too would become a law. Mordecai quickly assembled the king's scribes and gave them a new decree to write. This decree said that all Jews had permission to gather themselves together on the 13th day of the last month of the year, the day on which their slaughter had been scheduled by Haman, and defend themselves against anyone who tried to harm them. They were given permission to kill any attackers with swords. When the news of the second decree became known, there was a great rejoicing among all the Jews. Messengers were sent to ride as fast as possible to all parts of the land, so that all the people would hear of the decree in time. Then the Jews armed themselves and fought for their lives and won the victory. Then for 2 days, on the 14th and 15th day of the 12th month, they rested. After that, they celebrated a feast each year on the 14th and 15th day of the last month. This feast is called the Feast of Purim, and to this day the Jews celebrate it each year.